Good evening, everyone. I am calling the September 17th, 2019 West Grey Council meeting to order. Call to order has been completed on item 1. And for item 2, moment of reflection. If you wouldn't mind standing with me, if you can, please do so. Thank you. All right, all members of council are present. That does represent a quorum. On to item 3, which is declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Members of council, are there any pecuniary interests? Seeing none, we will move on to item 4, closed session. For this particular agenda, there is no closed session. Matters arising from closed session that will lend itself to an NA. Item 6, comment period. Members of the audience, is there anyone that would like to make a comment at this time? All right, well, thank you for no comment, but thank you for being here. All right, item 7, public meetings. There is nothing scheduled today on this agenda. Item 8, we are now on to part 1 consent agenda. And I do have a motion before me, which is moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that items A1 to B1 inclusive, contained in Part 1 consent agenda, be adopted as amended, and further that the authorization be given for the action to be taken as may be necessary to give effect to the recommendations contained therein. Before I call the vote, Clerk Turner, could you please explain the as amended?
So the one amendment I have is the withdrawal of my consent agenda report. It had noted about approving the Committee of the Whole recommendation regarding the Rural Economic Development Grant and another grant. However, that was recommended for approval at the August 27th Committee of the Whole meeting, and then that evening we had a council meeting, or there was a council meeting, and it actually was approved by a direct motion, so that my report is not required, so I will withdraw that.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yeah, and I have a correction in the BIA minutes. I think it says Business Durham Improvement Area. It's actually Durham BIA. There was a couple of figures in there regarding Christmas lights that aren't quite right. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. We'll have to correct it and get the final. This is just a draft. It's on page 30 and 31. If you want to look at it, but it says that the BIA were to pay half of the $2,600 cost for the 30 decorative lights, but it's actually $26,000, not $2,600. And the BIA further down, it suggests they had passed a motion to cover up to $12,500 instead of $1,250. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention in case anybody questioned that it's actually $26,000 for the Christmas lights rather than $2,600.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get that corrected through the BIA, but the draft minutes are in there just so you're aware of it.
Well, we absolutely appreciate the clarity on that and recognizing that it'll go back to the Durham BIA. Thank you for highlighting it, and we'll see it again for sure on the agenda. Is there anything else before I call the question? Councillor Hergert?
Yes, I just wanted to pull the idea out of the Normanby Recreation minutes about the history books that are in the basement. And I think this might apply to additional history books, not just Normanby. I'd like us to bring that topic up on Committee of the Whole,
Good.
which we have next week. So we don't really need to discuss tonight, except put it under new business possibly.
Yes, well, thank you very much for utilizing the time here as opposed to new business. So it'll be so noted. Do we need to, if Clerk Turner, if you identify it now, it can be translated into the Committee of the Whole for next week. Satisfactory? Good. Anything further, members of council? All right. Calling the vote on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. So you'll note miscellaneous correspondence on C1, and item D will be the future committee meetings on the agenda. So that takes us right over to part 2, regular agenda. Item 9, communications from mayor and members of council. So I certainly want to tell you that I attended the Durham Fall Fair, also the Walk It for Parkinson's, the Pull Together for the Durham Hospital, the Normanby Plow Match, and the Abbeyfield dinner. It was a Abbeyfield golf fundraiser. I attended the dinner portion of that. I also want to say I'm looking forward to the Newstat Fall Fair, which is September 20th and 21st. It's this weekend, and the weather promises to be incredible. So I look forward to any of the exhibitors, Councillor Hamilton, and I don't know who else will be involved in that, but we certainly will have a West Grey float in the parade this year. Also, we've held our first vision session at Newstat, and that's where we're inviting the community to come out and talk to members of council, look at the big picture, whether that big picture is really extended or if it's a small picture, but just to engage in dialogue. First one happened last week, and we're looking forward to our next vision session, October 29th in Ayton at 7 p.m. So with that, I'm going to conclude, and I'm going to start with Councillor Hutchinson, if I might. Okay.
Sure. A couple of events that I attended, and the mayor was there, and maybe a few other councillors. I didn't see everyone. I know Ms. Hamilton was there on the Terry Fox run on Sunday. A good turnout. I haven't heard anything in terms of funds that were raised, but it was very successful, I think.
Yes.
Nice day. Lots of people out with their families, and it was just an enjoyable day and a very worthwhile cause. So that was one event that I managed to get to. Another one that I went to last Thursday was a West Grey Chamber had a social at the, I believe it was the Saugeen Cedars Campground, I think it's called. And it was interesting, not a big turnout, but a few individuals more from our sort of our northeastern section of West Grey that were there to representing a few of the Grey Highlands people. So it was interesting, and we had a good little social on Thursday night. So that was a couple of events that I've been involved in. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to mention that at our Newstat Fall Fair, there will be a survey that will be presented to individuals that are attending, that are Newstat residents. There was $10,000 that will be utilized in Newstat, and the question will be, what do you wish to do with that? I think there's the categories, Madam CAO, for that. I wonder if you would just, I'm going to just extend some latitude, if I might, members of council, if you could just briefly mention it. I think it's worthy at this point.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the Main Street funds are intended to revitalize downtown, small town Ontario, and West Grey was a recipient of a grant of about $48,000. The decision was made to disperse that amongst our 4 urban cores. We're looking at $10,000 with a little bit of a buffer for each community, and all of the communities have made a decision except for Newstad. So the visioning was a great opportunity to have the conversation started.
Yes.
There will be a survey box at the Fall Fair this weekend. The little questionnaires have been printed and ready for people to fill out their choice and drop it in the box, and then staff will tally that up next week. And so there'll be more information following what that community would like to see that investment made into their downtown.
Thank you. And will the survey also be at the library or specifically at the Fall Fair?
Thank you for the question, Madam Mayor. We're going to start with the Fall Fair. There's no time limit on the survey, so we are really hoping that a lot of people stop by the library's booth at the fair. We may extend it a little bit longer so that we can get those that couldn't make it out over the weekend, but there is no timeline here. We just have to have the money committed and spent by March 31, 2020.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Hamilton, please.
A few weeks ago, the Elmwood Chamber of Commerce invited the Elmwood Community Centre Board to come together for a community meeting, and our CEOs from Brockton and from West Grey attended as well. So it was a really great opportunity for the 2 municipalities to come together at the same table and talk about all things Elmwood and hear about some of the needs and priorities and how we can communicate well together. And we also discussed the Main Street funding grant and Elmwood's moving forward with a digital welcome sign, which would be a great addition to the community. So a really positive step for Elmwood. I was pleased to be there. Had a great time at the Durham Fall Fair. I exhibited for the first time, had a blast, enjoyed the parade, and I was at the library booth giving away free books, and I'll be at the library booth again in Newstead, giving away free books and facilitating the survey. That's really great. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mary Robinson. Too attended the Durham Fall Fair, Terry Fox Run. Naturally, I was at the Newstead Vision meeting. A couple of things. Tomorrow night, we're actually going to be in Elmwood, and the Elmwood Fire Department is going to be recognize their volunteers with some service awards, so looking forward to that. I'll be at the Newstead Fall Fair this weekend, naturally. Sundays followed up with the Newstead Lions pork chop dinner. Saturday, October 5th, Glen Colton Farm is doing a fish fry for those that like fish. And I just want to do a quick reach out to a young gentleman that lives in our community. His name's Owen Ron. I want to say congratulations. He's actually made the U17, under 17 fastball team Canada. Yes. So he's selected to be on that team, represent Canada across the country. So that's a pretty good accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shea, please.
So just to reiterate a couple of things that have already been said, participating in the Fall Fair, I was happy to be one of the judges of the Fair Ambassador program. That was very rewarding. Also participated in the parade with the Durham Sauntering Band, also very rewarding. I did have a couple of meetings with citizens over the last couple of weeks, independently soliciting my opinion about summer weekly garbage pickup. So I know this is a perennial problem or question that's come up over and over again, so I think we should reinvestigate that sometime over the next budget cycle. So just flagging that for future discussion.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Hergert, please.
So I attended the Alzheimer's Society coffee break, and there were several of us that were there. Anyway, thank you very much to Harriet Mitchell, who hosted that one, and Pauline Mason's Alzheimer's Society coffee break is Saturday, September 21st, from 10:30 till 1:30 at the Legion in Durham. If you could make it there, it would be wonderful. Last night, I had the opportunity to attend the 812 Squadron Air Cadet Battle of Britain Remembrance, and they also received promotions, so that was pretty exciting. Now, if nobody knows about the Air Cadets, they've recently moved into West Grey. Even though their name is Hanover Squadron, they're now located in West Grey. So anyway, looking forward to the Fall Fair on Friday and Saturday. I'm going to compete in the log sawing competition, and this year has new rules, so I'll have to see if I can keep up my first place women's with a dual team. Now it's men's, women. So anyway, thank you very much. That's in memoriam of Fred Clagis, the log sawing competition. So anyway, one last thing. Hanover Paramount Theatre this weekend will be presenting, on Saturday evening at 7 p.m., we'll be presenting a movie called The Public, and this is a movie that we've discussed as, like a former library board member, I've discussed this with our present library board member, Beth Hamilton. And this is a movie about the value of public libraries, beyond books, beyond just a location. And I'm really looking forward to it. It had a very limited release here in Canada, so just try and catch it if you can.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend, please.
Thank you. First of all, also attended the fair, and I must say their silent auction was absolutely excellent, and so was the live auction, where you got to buy quilts by some people here, as well as lots and lots of goodies from the people baked or were donated by folks like Pebbles. I think they had about 8 items in there, and they're excellent. Trust me, I had the cheesecake, so it was well worth the effort. Also, the library started their strategic planning effort at the end of August, and there's a subcommittee coming up, or been established, and their meeting's coming up on September 25th, and the goal is to actually hone down all the feedback we got at the general session, similar to what we did here, and Stephanie took that role. This is going to be done by a subcommittee of the library, so I'm going to be a member of that, which should be fun. Also, actually played in the Abbeyfield golf course. It was kind of interesting. There were 2 of us, so we got to play twice. So we played 36 holes. You know, very tiring when you're done, but we had lots of fun afterwards at the meal. And they did better than last year. I think they had 24 golfers this year, which is much better than last year. So we just keep trying to build it, and they can use the cash. Cobide relocation is coming up on Friday, 3 to 6 at their new offices on 10th Street in Hanover, and they obviously work for us. I check with staff, and they do work, and we saw today there was reports they were providing for even some of the clients that come here, customers, residents, so it's really good to support them if you can. Also, we talked about bulk buying, and there's an LAS webinar on September 24th at 10 a.m., and I'm sure you'll get a good feel for how we can leverage that. And it seems like there's at least 3 different options out there now that we might be able to take, so it's always good to be able to look at all of them. And there's also a Riverside reunion September 28th in Owen Sound, and you can go to their website and have a look and get all the details there. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I really enjoy this section of the agenda because it gives an idea of the activities that we're all undertaking during the 2-week period effectively, but also it's not always at the decision-making table, but definitely out in the community. So it's really enjoyable to hear what one and all has been up to. I just wanted to let members of council and certainly everyone in the audience and who's listening under the communications portion that we have arranged for Barb Feedy, who is the Director of Social Services at Grey County, to come out to one of our council meetings and talk about just an overview of social services and what's available from the county and what West Grey citizens can learn about. Certainly that will be coordinated with Barb herself as well as our clerk. And we're also going to have Randy Switzer, who's the Director of Planning, and Anne Marie Shaw, Director of Housing, and I know you know their titles. They'll be coming out to the November 12th Committee of the Whole Planning, and that's specifically when we're dealing with the attainable, affordable, tiny homes discussion. So I felt it was important to include the county in this discussion, and certainly wanted to give you a heads up. Maybe you have some questions you want to write down ahead of time, just getting ready for that discussion. So thank you very much for that, and I think we have effectively completed, or exhausted, if you will, item 9. So moving on to item 10, delegations. We do not have any scheduled for this evening. Item 11, business arising from the previous minutes. No? Yes, Councillor Hergert.
So at the August 27th meeting, we were asking for an organizational chart. Also, at our last meeting on September 23rd, it was mentioned that the Director of Infrastructure Public Works might have a top list of infrastructure projects that would be available. So I guess I'm just looking for those to come back to us.
Sure, good questions. Now I'm wondering, Madam CIO, are you prepared at this point just to respond? It would be most helpful if you did.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I can confirm that an org chart will be at the next Committee of the Whole meeting at the end of September, and I spoke with our director today, and he also advised that he will have a list of those projects that he's putting into a CAL report for next week as well. It's going to be a long meeting, but a good
Yes,
one.
and also just by way of follow-up, I know that we're anticipating a report dealing with the new business items that we've collected from the start of our term, from December all the way up to present, just to give a status report on where we're at with those items, and we're just anticipating the arrival of that report. So thank you very much. Good. All right, we are successfully on item 12, which is fondly known as staff reports. We're starting with the Director of Finance and Treasurer. So there's one item on that particular item. This is approval of voucher number 17-2019. Would you like to just provide us with maybe a snapshot as to why it is a very large amount this time, Director Mighton?
Yeah, the accounts this evening do include the quarterly remittance for the Grey County and School Board levies. That's just over $2.2 million. And it also has a couple payment certificates in there for some capital projects, the Bruce Street and some bridge work that has been completed. So that's just under $500,000.
Thank you very much. Members of council, are there any questions on this item? All right, looking left and right. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Just a question. I noticed, Director Mighton, there's a number of tax sales in this report. Do we have any status, like where are we at with those? Are they at the end? What's the closing date and that type of thing?
Yeah, so there is 5 properties that are currently advertised for tax sale. They will close September the 26th at 3 o'clock. And then there is another batch that we are in the process of continuing, but they haven't been advertised yet as well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Further? Councillor Shea.
So we talked at the Newstead event about tax sales, and I was hoping that when you arranged for a little budget workshop for council, that we could also have a chapter on how tax sales work. Thanks.
Great. Councillor Hergert.
And if I may, Director, you and I have had a conversation that basically anybody that would have a property listed on tax sale could redeem that amount listed at any time up until the 26th, correct? Right. Yeah, just for some good information for the public.
Absolutely. Further? I'm looking to my left. And to my right. Well, I do have a motion before me, moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that the Director of Finance Treasurer be authorized to pay the accounts presented as voucher number 17-2019 in the amount of $3,877,207.92 of the municipality of West Grey. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Thank you very much. Thank you, Director Mighton. I appreciate that. Now, members of council, I have been advised that the next item, which is the next report from the Director of Infrastructure and Public Works has been withdrawn at this point. The idea is that it will be addressed, or a new item will be brought forward when we have the new Director of Infrastructure and Public Works. Madam CAO, is there any further clarification required?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to let council know that there is no impact on this contract by having a short delay.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to say by the withdrawal of this report, look down further on your agenda under proposed bylaws. So number 67-2019 will not be addressed at this council meeting. Okay, correct, Clerk Turner? Okay, thank you. All right. So we now move on to the clerk's report. And there are two items, starting with the Township of Larder Lake. Clerk Turner, please.
Yes, the Township of Larder Lake Council is requesting support, or seeking support for the resolution lobbying provincial ministers to allow for electronic delegations regarding major conferences. The main ones being the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Annual Conference and the Ontario Good Roads Association. I gather some of them, such as the more northerly municipalities, it can be quite a cost to travel to those conferences, and so they're looking at some mechanism to allow for electronic delegations. So I do have a motion ready if council wishes to support that.
Comments? Councillor Hamilton and then Councillor Hutchinson.
I support this in principle. Could I hear what your motion is, Mark Turner?
So the motion I have crafted states, resolve that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports the resolution of the Township of Larder Lake lobbying provincial ministers to allow electronic delegations for major conferences, and further that a supporting letter be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, provincial ministers, and Township of Larder Lake.
So I would move that, and we can continue talking.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Hutchinson, please.
Yeah, when I first read that, I was sort of curious why it had to be at the conferences. Like, it'd be nice to think that our ministry's open at any time, that we could do a delegation. I mean, their staff's there anyways, but so I just wondered why it had to be conference. I know that's when we normally meet and whatnot, but to me it would make more sense if they were available year-round, that if you wanted to put together a delegation and you could do it electronically, so you're not tying up people's time and travel, that could work. So, but I guess this one, it says in the first part, is at conferences. I don't know if it says that in the motion, does it? To allow electronic delegations for major conferences. Okay, it does say for major conferences in there. Okay. Yeah, so that's fine. That was a question I had regarding that.
Very good point. Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Townsend, please.
Yeah, again, I support it in principle. I'd even second the motion if you wish, but the comment is that with 444 municipalities, 200 working days in a year, if you're trying to do delegations, they normally will take longer and they will take up more time. So I'm not sure how practical it is, but I think there should be some way where electronic delegations could occur.
Yeah.
And maybe it's under a limited use rather than just everybody doing it. But the volume itself, I think, might scare them. So if we had that kind of bent to whatever we decide to send in, I think that would be more advantageous.
Good, very good. Any further comments before I read the motion? No? All right. So moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports the resolution of the Township of Larder Lakes lobbying provincial ministers to allow electronic delegations for major conferences, and further that a supporting letter be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, provincial ministers, and the Township of Larder Lake. Questions, comments? Calling the question then. All those in favour? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Clerk Turner, you have one further item, City of Kitchener.
So the City of Kitchener Council is lobbying the federal government to review regulations related to consumer packaging on single-use wipes to remove the word flushable, as the city has indicated that the single-use wipes are in fact not safe to flush, as they are buoyant and not biodegradable. So I do have a resolution again, if council wishes to entertain it.
Councillor Herger, please.
Absolutely. I think this affects our infrastructure as well. I mean, these products are utilized in West Grey as well, so I think we need to put some protection for our own underground work.
Thank you very much. Further? All right, very good. I'll just wait for that to return to me. Thank you very much. So the motion is moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be resolved that the Council of the Municipality of West Grey hereby supports the resolution of the City of Kitchener lobbying the federal government to review the regulations related to consumer packaging on single-use wipes to remove the word flushable, as the city is indicating that the single-use wipes are in fact not safe to flush, as they are buoyant and not biodegradable. And further, that the supporting letter be forwarded to the Right Honourable Prime Minister, Premier of Ontario, Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, MPP Bill Walker, and the City of Kitchener. Comments? Calling the question then. All those in favour? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Clerk Turner, I believe that completes all of the items on your report. Thank you. So we are now moving over to CAO Deputy Clerk report. Madam CAO, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am pleased to present to Council and our audience the finalized version of the West Grey Council Vision Plan 2019-2022. Council will recall about 6 months ago we started this journey of creating a plan that, as I believe Councillor Shea described it, it's more of our, it's also, as much as it's our vision, it's our philosophy, and it's the way that we want to conduct ourselves and our decisions for this term of council. We landed on 3 pillars, which I haven't memorized yet, but I will. And they are engage and involve, be responsible and accountable, and celebrate and promote. And the plan was reviewed in the summer, and staff took away the feedback from council and put together what you have in front of you as our final document, our coffee table version, if you will. And this is now going to be, once council, should council adopt this will also translate into a work plan for staff as we continue to make our own decisions and our recommendations to council through things like the budget and some of the work that we'd like to start working on.
So you see, for the recommendation, we have the report from the CAO be received and that council adopts the West Grey Vision Plan 2019-2022. Any comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Herger.
So I like the pictures. I think they're very nice. I think the information's presented well. I don't really feel that this is everything I want it to be. I feel like it doesn't include bridges, infrastructure projects, which we know are the have-tos, but it doesn't show a plan of attack of how we're going to actually accomplish that. I feel like it lacks in other ways too, just how will we roll these projects out? If I think about asset management, and it says here, page 90, we are stewards of our assets, services, and environment. We will develop a proactive strategic asset management plan. How are we going to do that? Will that be the absolute Director of Infrastructure and Public Works? I mean, I see that it's actually executively sponsored by the CAO and the Finance Treasurer, and that's per our strategic asset management bylaw that we passed before July 1st. But really, I'd like to see the how of we're going to do these. How are we going to do them? Are we going to get a committee of council? Is this going to be a committee of citizens? Is this only one Director of Infrastructure Public Works job? How are we going to do them? So I feel like I'm left thinking, it's beautiful, but to me it doesn't really get at the points that I want and our community need addressed. So I'm left just a little empty feeling.
So I see where you're going. This is definitely the overarching document, the strategic plan for our municipality. But I think, to your point, the items that match up to this are the action plans or things that we approve through budget deliberation and through our council and committee of the whole meetings. So I see action plans being created out of this, and where it has the how-to and the measurables. But if that is Madam CAO, if you could confirm if that is the correct path, and if that is the case, in order to address Councillor Hergert's important point, is there a way that we could just put sort of like the path forward, or however we can identify that action plans will be created and will match back to this overarching document?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe the intention always was, at least from my perspective, was that we would take this philosophy, these are the things that matter to this council and quite frankly to the corporation, because I'm happy to say the senior management team actually identified with this strategy and where we'd like to go, and match it up to the work that we would be proposing through the budget and throughout the year, quite frankly. With the last action plan that the previous council had, I spent some time doing quarterly updates on how we achieved the pillars in that plan, and I would not see any difference for this. It's just not as prescribed to that detail yet, because this is truly much more of a living document. It's not the traditional strategic plan that says we are only going to do these things. It leaves it much open for us to be a little bit more flexible, to embrace opportunities that we can't possibly foresee. And I think that that's the strength of this plan, is that it gives us those very opportunities.
And I do note that in the next steps, which is included in your report, the Chief Administrative Officer will implement a quarterly reporting schedule to provide a status update on the plan outlining projects that align with the priorities and identify any other particulars related to the progress. The first report update will be at the end of the first quarter 2020.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And prior to that, of course, will be the budget process, which will be based on these pillars.
Correct, the budget process, absolutely. Anything further before I go to Councillor Hutchinson?
Well, here's the thing. I went to this AMO conference. Every one of my neighbors paid for me to go. I bring back a report that talks about how to make asset management a priority, how to get our bridges open, how to keep our bridges open. I went back, I dug up all the research about how does this stellar municipality, how do they make it work? So then to just transcribe that for West Grey would be to include it in your strategic plan. Infrastructure, bridges are at the top. Everything we do flows out of that. So the work plan and the committees and that flows out of that. But if we don't set that as our top priority in our strategic plan, we're missing it. So strategic plan, put it in the strategic plan, get a committee of council, train staff on asset management, and plan the budget around infrastructure. So I'm going to suggest that that is our community's top priority. And I think that this is beautiful, and there's been a lot of work gone into it. I'm not denying any of that. But I just don't see asset management or infrastructure as a priority on here, and I would like to see that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hutchinson?
Yeah, I agree somewhat with Councillor Herget in that I think we need to do some more work on this. I was a little disappointed the other day when we went to Newstead and I talked to some people and we had advertised that we were doing a vision. We were looking for the input on our vision, and yet now we're taking this vision and passing it, but we've only had one session with our public. So to me, I think we should wait until we've had all of our sessions with our public, and to give them a chance, if not vision, if it's not going to be coming from them in terms of the vision, then at least public input. And as we heard the other night, people concerned about the road and about garbage and all those things, which are important. But I think if we just take till the end of the year to get more public input, then we can look at this, and then we can look at the asset management, because I agree that we need to put some detail in here so that we know what our priorities are, and we haven't heard from all of our public other than through our campaigning. So that's sort of our background, right, from our campaigns. So I would like to see us wait, because it does talk in here about, that we're looking for public input and so on. So, yeah, so I would just like to see us hold off on passing this until we have more public input and have another round of discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to be satisfied as a council that this is the document that we're going to represent, and it's our forward-thinking document that will direct and instruct our staff, and it also is a communicative tool for our citizens. So absolutely, if we're not satisfied, it requires more work, or whatever the input is, however council wishes to deal with it, then I completely understand how everything is flowing out of this discussion. Certainly, we've only heard from some members of council at this point, but I just want to say we're hearing everything at this table for sure. Starting with Councillor Shea again.
I might agree that it needs more work, but I would suggest that it needs 3.5 years more work. That is the remainder of our term. Our job isn't finished with publishing this document. I think this document does a very good job of encapsulating an approach to problem solving. This doesn't solve any problems. It's just describing the attitude that we will take, the collaborative, forward-thinking, imaginative, outside the box, responsible, prudent attitude that we should collectively adopt to problem solving. I think what we're hearing is that the follow-up steps have not been articulated, and that the step that comes after developing this document is that, I think as you pointed out, we developed the hard, measurable strategic plans for asset management, but for all sorts of other things as well. I think we did have a little bit of a communication snafu when we named the sessions in the town's visioning, when this is a visioning document, and I think this was only renamed a visioning document recently. We should not have used the same word for those two exercises, I don't think. Yeah. But it was very interesting that when we were in Neustadt, we heard people talking about garbage and roads, but we also heard people talking about long-term planning. How could we take this small amount of money that we have to invest, instead of spending it today, how could we invest that and leverage that into doing more long-term beneficial activities for the community? We heard people talking about economic development initiatives within the community, about targeted strategic marketing of the community for specific areas of growth. Those were all sort of brilliant brainstorming kinds of ideas. Those are the sorts of ideas that I think we need to embrace as a council, and our community, according to that meeting, is clearly encouraging us to do that. So my question is not, is this document perfect? I think that I saw a typo on page 4, but it's like, what do we do next? I think this is great. I think we should adopt this and improve it as is, but approve it as is, pardon me. But we have to map out what the next strategies are going to be. The concrete ones, the hard plans that have measurable deliverables, and the more imaginative, innovative plans that we will develop with our communities to allow them to grow in specifically tailored, molded ways that fit those local people. So good job on this, I would say.
Thank you for that. Before I go through the speakers list, I just want to talk a little further on that. So we have our overall strategic plan, is effectively what it is. We're calling it a vision plan. We're trying something modern, something a little different. So I'm wondering, Madam CIO, if you could speak to next steps, and then should council be so inclined to approve this tonight, and that we can move on. We've got a lot of other work, but if we can have sort of an understanding or an appreciation that if a council is so inclined to approve this tonight, the next steps would be whether it's action plans that get developed through our budget deliberation process, which will obviously involve our public and our key stakeholders, and so it'd be our asset management plans, our action plans, and maybe even the 2020 capital and operating status report on all of our programs and services. So, and that can fold into key performance indicators as well. So we can measure success, and we could also measure where else we need to be. So having said that, if this plan gets approved tonight, what would be the next steps that could be articulated with some of the concerns that you've heard tonight?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff reviewing this document, as am I, as the principles of this council, the things that matter to you. And I wouldn't think that anyone in this community wouldn't embrace the concepts of being engaged and being allowed to be involved, of us being responsible and accountable, and celebrating and promoting West Grey. I mean, celebrating and promoting West Grey is an economic development activity. Engagement and involved, that's a communications activity. And I've heard time and again how we need a new website, how we need to do social media. So all of the things that we hear, we want to make sure that we've got a vehicle to align those requests from the community. Infrastructure is absolutely being responsible and accountable. They fit in this plan. Our next steps would be take that information that we're hearing from the visioning and make sure that it hits these principles of this council. So absolutely, we would have to create that much more work plan style document that would be a companion to this. This really is, what we're asking council is, we believe we heard what you were telling us through those workshops, those facilitated workshops. I know I heard what staff told me through our senior management meetings, and everyone feels that this is a plan that we can be proud of because it speaks to how we want to operate. What the tactics are that fall under each of these 1, 2, and 3, that will change as we hear different things from the community. But I think that's the beauty of this vision plan, is that it is how we want to operate for this term of council. The last term of council had an action plan, and it was thou shalt, and it was boom, boom, boom. And that was very easy to measure, but it didn't really give a sense of who we are. It gave a sense of what we were doing. I think this plan, and which is why we made the shift to vision, not the best timing, agreed Councillor Shea on the word change, but this describes who we are as elected officials and as the staff that get to carry out those directions.
Great. And I think as time goes on, there will be a match with our vision plan and those vision sessions that we have undertaken. So I see a linkage with that coming up anyway. I see a natural linkage. So Councillor Hergert, Councillor Townsend, and then I have the remaining members of council. Please go ahead. Sure. So I've got Councillor Townsend, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Hamilton, then Deputy Mayor, and I'll come back to you at that point, okay? Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
CEO Johnson, I think it was really interesting you used the word principles, because when I read it, I saw it more as values, which is very similar to principles.
Yeah.
I didn't really see it as the strategic that I was expecting. And so I agree with Councillor Hergert and Councillor Hutchinson that that's kind of the gap. I think it's a great start. I think it's a great base and foundation in which to bring it together. But I think seeing it like this for the first time was when you really appreciate how we've taken the information and kind of shifted the focus from what I thought was going to come out of it, right? So you still need to capture it, but I'll say a standard or conventional type strategic plan does mission, vision, values. This is your vision and your values portion, right, in my mind. You still need to talk about some of the things like what is really important over the next 4 years to focus on. We've talked communication, but we've talked other things, right? We've talked of being accountable, and I think that's something we recognize rather than say we'll do, because this council is being accountable, and they're being very proactive. They're being responsible. So I think we're living our values. So I'm still of the mind that we need more discussion. I agree with my cohorts here. But I also believe, when I think of Councillor Hutchinson's point, we are doing visioning. It's one of the reasons I had a concern that we're still going into December before we finish our visioning. And I do it for two reasons. One is I had concerns about this one. And second, are we really going to be able to hold up the budget long enough to be able to take into account on the last couple of sessions? I don't know that. And so it does worry me that we won't have time to incorporate everything that's here. So if we're serious about getting their input, then I think, and having it reflected, I'm of the same ilk of deferring it at this point and bringing it back when, in fact, we've had those sessions. We see what people are thinking of, their focus, and also we see how we can bring this into a sense that maybe has a little more than just the values and vision, but it actually has some of the strategy in it as well. So I'm looking for a mix, if you will,
Sure.
of conventional and what we have.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hamilton.
So I'd like to pick up from that thread, Councillor Townsend, about the mix. I wrote down, I want both. I want this vision document that we have and the strategic planning document, and they'll marry together. And I'm hearing you speak to that, CO Johnston, as an action plan to follow. I was, when we started the strategic planning process, the outcome I thought would be actionable items that are measurable, short, medium, long-term goals, things that we can say, yes, we had success here. And what I'm hearing from our citizens too is they want to look at a document to say, what are you going to do? What are you going to do at council in the next 3 years? And I don't see those concrete examples here in this vision plan document. I think this document was really important. I think the process that we've done is really important, and you've captured it really well. I see this as the midway point document. This captures what we've done so far. Let's build on this and build out some more action-oriented, measurable goals. And I was also thinking, this vision document, we haven't had a lot of opportunity for the public to comment. Why not take this document to our vision sessions, and let's hear from our community about what they think about this document and how that will inform the final version of this document and also our strategic plan. So I think this is a really good foundation, but I don't think this is the final goal of this document. I think it's one piece that's really valuable, and I'd like us to have a more traditional strategic plan when this process is all said and done.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Robinson. I just want to say thank you to the staff for putting this together. I think it's a well-done report. And if I go back 6 months ago, we did reach out to the community for participation, and we did have some attendance from the community that sat in our first part of the sessions. And as we developed and we went through the last few months, these 3 pillars is really what we nailed down as a committee of the whole or as a committee when we sat there. So I think they've hit the target of what we wanted, including staff's input. So I think this design is what we're after. I think the vision sessions that we're going into, the one that we've completed at Newstead, and the ones we're going into, I think the input that we're going to get back from the public needs to be put in underneath each one of these pillars that, again, we all discussed and we've spent a lot of time on getting to these 3 pillars. So I think what we get back from the visions should fall under each one of these 3 categories that we've all decided this, we haven't spent a lot of time on. So I think we're in the right direction, and I think the visions will fall under there, including your roads and bridges and infrastructure and everything else. I think they just fall in where they are, and I think staff can plunk each from each vision session where the multiple answers or questions, they fall into specific categories that we can zero in on. That's how I'm looking at this. So I think it's a well-prepared document, and I think it's a great base for us to kick off.
Thank you. Councillor Hergert.
I believe Beth hit it on the head. We need a mix. Doing is what our community wants to see. They want to see the action items. Involve and engage, that goes right to Councillor Hutchison's point. We've got a document, and our first pillar is involve and engage. And we're going to say thank you very much for coming out to the vision sessions, and we've already stopped that discussion. Right? It sounds a little odd. Just curious, does the county have a strategic plan that they are working on or no? I know the one that they have right now goes until 2019. I didn't know if we maybe would have some alignment with what the county is doing.
Yeah, so to answer that, definitely the county has a strategic plan currently, but we will be within a Grey County strategic plan on October 15th, and that's a full day. It's the first day of that session that we'll begin.
So if we held for our few additional meetings that we have scheduled within our communities, is it possible that Grey County would have a draft strategic plan and we could show that alignment with, okay, they're prioritizing this, this, and this, and we're doing this, this, and this. So we're not overlapping, we're complementing.
Yeah, so it's a public session, where it's the document that will come out of it will be public. I don't see any difficulty with that. If there are some notes or my experience or the deputy mayor's experience that we could certainly translate that into what what we're doing, that certainly isn't a problem.
So at this time, I would like to move to defer this item until after we've concluded our vision sessions in each community.
So I did have a motion before me, which is to approve the plan, which I have not put in to the record. A motion to defer takes precedent, so it's moved by Councillor Hergert. Is there a seconder? Is that Councillor Hutchinson on that? Clerk Turner, that goes without discussion at this point. I will just call the question. Procedurally, that is correct. So just for everyone at this table, and I know you know that, I'm just going to call the question on the deferral, but those in the audience and anyone that will be watching, normally under a motion, there's comments or questions, but with a deferral, it's straight to the vote. So other than my explanation, that's where we're going. So there is a motion to defer. Within that motion, do we have a time frame, or is that necessary, Clerk Turner?
I'd prefer to have it before the end of the year and after we've concluded all of our vision sessions in each community.
Okay, so that's appropriate in the motion. Seconder?
You okay with that?
Okay. Yeah, it's not me, you know, that I'm not cutting the discussion off, but that's procedurally as the, for a motion to defer. So that's enough discussion on deferring. Calling the question, all those in favor of the deferral? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those opposed? It does carry for the deferral. All right, so we will not use this. I'll just put this over. All right, thank you very much. Well, that completes all of our items. A little more work on the vision plan, and that is to be taken as a positive, and there's no other way to look at that, but just based on the discussions that you've heard here and the input and suggestions from council. After all, it's a document that we have ownership of, and our staff and our citizens. So I think doing it right is really important. This is the first strategic plan, vision plan, if you will, for this council. So that is definitely something that we want to get right, and the engagement with our citizens. So I know I'm talking to Madam CAO, but that's to everybody in the audience and who's listening. Councillor Hergert, please.
I was just going to add one last comment. The work plan that our CAO crafted several years ago on the last strategic plan was outstanding. So I'm sure once we all see that work plan, we'll be like, that's amazing. So good luck.
Good, yeah. Oh, of course, good luck is always what's necessary. So that does conclude item 12. Those are all the staff reports for this evening's agenda. And I am now just going to start item 13, which is our proposed bylaws for first, second, and third reading. So the first one, moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that bylaw number 66-2019, being a bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of the Normanby Arena concession stand agreement between the municipality of West Grey and Steve Launce, and in brackets, repeals bylaw number 49-2019, being now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Members of council, are there any questions on this bylaw? Councillor Hamilton, please.
Just on the first page of the agreement, it
Yes.
refers to the Fall Fair and the Durham Egg Society. But maybe that doesn't need to be there since this is in, not in Durham, yeah? So could we make an amendment and strike that? That would be number 2B, if that's the appropriate thing to do.
Clerk Turner, I wonder if you would just mention that for the record, please?
Yes, that should be amended. Thank you.
Okay, further? Councillor Hergert?
I was under the impression that this was for a one-year term commencing September 17th, so that would conclude September 16th of next year.
Yes, it was absolutely for a one-year term. There was discussion to have a further term, but I know that Mr. Launce wanted the one-year term.
So we'll need that amended as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Clerk Turner? So amended?
So the term speaks to the end of March 2020. So you're looking, is that agreeable to Mr. Launce to go to September 1st, 2020? Is that what you're asking?
Madam CAO, please
Thank you,
comment.
Madam Mayor. And yes, Clerk Turner, I recall Mr. Launce was quite clear that he wanted a one-year term.
Yeah.
Typically, he ends at the end of March to begin again. He takes a bit of a break, so I'm not sure if he understands that the expectation is for him to be there when there isn't a lot of activity at the arena. That would be something we would need to clarify, because he does close up shop during the slower months.
Yep, thank you for that. Councillor Herger?
So there was some discussion that this summer we had the Ayton Bandstand, and that would have been an opportunity that Mr. Lance could have worked or been the food preparer at that time. So I think that he was looking for that opportunity to have just a one-year term.
So how are we proceeding on this, Madam CAO and then Councillor Hutchinson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to tie Mr. Lance's hands if he's not expecting to pay rent in April, May, June, and July. By saying that he's there until September to September, that's what we're putting on him, and I don't have that clarity in my mind. So, Mr. Turner, can we bring this back on? My understanding is that Mr. Lance would, his idea of a one-year lease is from now until the end of March. If I'm incorrect, could we bring it back to council for an extension of that March date?
Correct, so you have two options, well, maybe more than two, but obviously you could pass it as amended with the deletion of the Durham Fall Fair reference and keep it at March 31st, 2020, and that could be conveyed to Mr. Lance. If he's agreeable, then that's fine. If he is willing to extend it, then certainly we could bring forward an amendment to that agreement.
Okay, Councillor Hutchinson, you are also the mover of this motion.
Yeah, just, I think I had mentioned to ask the question about the summer hockey and whether he was interested in, and then his comment had to do with, well, he had taken his stuff out, so it wasn't going to work this year. But I think that it might be worth a discussion to mention that if his equipment is there, he might open it for the summer hockey, because there are quite a few people around there at that time. Maybe Mr. Deputy Mayor maybe has something to say on that.
So are you prepared to still move this as amended, and if there's a change that our staff can bring it forward? Fine. And Councillor Hamilton as a seconder? Yes. Okay. Any other comments before we call this? First, Councillor Townsend, and then Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
How about a compromise and say that we have it go from the period from today to the end of March, but he can extend it month by month if he so chooses. That way you've got an agreement tonight, you don't have to defer it another 2 weeks, and he gets the say of whether or not he wants to go beyond March.
I like that. Let's see if that works. Staff, and I'm looking to Madam CAO and Clerk. Clerk Turner, is that something that we can include tonight, or does it still have to be brought back? Should council go for that suggestion from Councillor Townsend?
You could certainly incorporate an amendment that speaks to it at the discretion of the operator to extend month per month.
Okay with that?
If he's fine with that provision, then it's fine. If he's not, then we're back again to council.
Okay. Does that seem like a likely compromise? Councillor Townsend.
Actually, I don't think he would object if we explain it correctly, that it's to the end of March. If he chooses not to go forward beyond March, he's done, right? So he has a straight out with no obligation if he doesn't extend it on a month-by-month basis.
Okay, so that
But it would be at the same rate. So I don't think he would object. I'd be surprised if he did.
Okay, very good compromise. Madam CIO, you've got the light on your mic.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do, and I'm just thinking from Mr. Lance's perspective. I don't know that there would be much point in him operating perhaps in April and May if there's not a lot of activity. I don't know the schedule at the arena as well as he would know. So if we're going to say it's the term ends on March 31st, or sorry, on September 17th, there's an option for month-to-month renewal. He may prefer to not pay rent in, for example, April and May if there's no business there. So I don't want to force his hand. I'd really rather come back with an amendment to this. He has seen this lease. He was prepared to sign it pending the discussion on the rental rate.
Okay.
So he's aware that it was always March 31st. If he'd like to continue to September, that would be fabulous, and we can just bring an amendment to the extension. We can bring an extension to this lease. It's a quick phone call to Mr. Lance, and I'd rather give him the opportunity to think about it before we say this is what we've done.
So key statement, among everything else, but the fact that he has seen this document and he's in agreement with it, correct? Okay. So are we going to proceed? We've got a motion here that I have read, mover and seconder, but I would just add to it as amended. Clerk Turner, would that be okay? And with the mover and seconder, Councillor Hutchinson, Councillor Hamilton, as is. So I am going to call the vote as it stands with the amendments that we're suggesting. We've got the clarity? All right. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Okay, a little bit more follow-up work through staff. Thank you very much. Now, I don't have any other bylaws before me. I know I could rely on you. Thank you very much. So we're going to deal with proposed bylaw 2019, but it's 68. Pardon. You're okay for now? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, so we do know that proposed bylaw 67 has been withdrawn. We do have proposed bylaw 68 before us, moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Shea. Be it resolved that bylaw number 68-2019 being a bylaw to permanently stop up and close a portion of an unopened road allowance described as part of the road allowance between lots 30 and 31, concession 11, NDR being part 4, plan 16R-11234, geographic township of Bentic, municipality of West Grey, and being part of PIN 37217-0098 in brackets LT, and bracket, and then again in brackets, repeals bylaw number 60-2019, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be now signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Clerk Turner.
So this bylaw may look familiar to council. A similar bylaw was approved during the August 27th council meeting. When I did send it to our municipal solicitor to have the agreement or the bylaw registered, she did discover that the initial legal description provided to me was not quite complete. So there is a difference that she felt required the bylaw to be amended to reflect the actual legal description. And do you need a refresher on what the bylaw does? Just for council's, again, for your information and the audience's information, there is a seasonal road that bisects this property that is utilized, again, on a seasonal basis by ratepayers in Glenelg, former Glenelg Township. Unfortunately, it was discovered when the property was being transferred in ownership that the seasonal road section did not have, or the municipality didn't have clear title to that section of road. So in order to do that, there has been an agreement that the landowner would be willingly transfer that portion or title to West Grey in exchange for the unopened road allowances that are on the southeasterly boundary of the property. So that would be the exchange. So the bylaw has to be passed, then there'll be a transfer agreement completed by the solicitor and signed, and then that will be taken care of.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson.
I believe you said Glenelg, but it's Bentic, right?
Sorry. Yes, it is Bentic. Sorry.
All right.
Further? Nothing further? Then I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Okay. 68. 69. Okay, moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Hutchinson. Be it resolved that bylaw number 69-2019, being a bylaw to approve a municipality of West Grey corporate asset naming policy, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions? Councillor Hergert.
I'll be very brief.
Okay.
Okay. So on page 117, there's discussion that it does not meet the Canadian Code of Advertising Standards, which is absolutely what we wanted it to do.
Yes.
So that would be 4-2. Names will not be chosen that, okay, there's double knots there, don't worry. Okay, we'll skip that one.
Okay.
The other one is that the Heritage Bridge fundraiser, and I just want to add this little bit in there. We've discussed this here at this table several times, but this bylaw is not meant for our fundraising blocks, the little parts that make up the whole. So that we've just clarified that and make that known to everybody, that we're not talking about like the Lions project at the Heritage Park. We're not renaming Heritage Park, we're just naming certain elements of the park. So just wanted to clarify that. And I'm sorry about the double.
That's okay. Anything further before I call the vote? Madam CIO?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, Councillor Hergert, I'm not quite sure I understand this. If there was a delegation from the Lions with a request to rename that as the Lions Heritage Park, that would be something that council could consider. This is not stopping anyone from doing that.
The whole park, right? That's what we're talking about, the whole
Yes.
park. If the Lions Club wants to come and sell a brick, we're not going to have any discussion over that.
Right. Thank you for the clarity.
If they're renaming
Yes.
the whole park, the whole thing, not just the elements,
Right.
individual elements
Yes,
in it.
as part of the, in fact, I'm meeting with the Lions next week to go over the memorandum of understanding, which will come to council so they have clarity on the pieces of the project. But you're right, the pieces of their project where they're selling a fundraising brick or a pathway or whatever, that's at their discretion because that falls outside of this. But if the club came and said, would council consider calling it the Lions Heritage Park, that would be something that council would have to determine.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the clarification.
It's worthwhile having clarification, absolutely. All right, I just have to look left and right. Are we okay? Because I have read this into the record. All those in favor then? Opposed, if any? It does carry. Okay. So we're dealing with our next bylaw. Moved by Councillor Townsend, seconded by Councillor Hergert. Be it resolved that bylaw number 70, being a bylaw to adopt amendment number 8 to the Municipality of West Grey official plan, in brackets, JT Excavating Limited, end bracket, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Clerk Turner, any comments?
This was recommended by the Committee of the Whole Planning earlier today.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Next bylaw, moved by Councillor Hutchinson, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Be it resolved that bylaw number 71 2019, being a bylaw to enter into a site plan control agreement between the Municipality of West Grey and Beckenhauer Garage Limited, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Clerk Turner, please.
So this agreement has been reviewed by the municipal planner, the Grey County Planning Department, Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, the municipal solicitor, as well as, of course, Mr. Beckenhauer and Northern Credit Union. I did have them sign, they actually did sign the agreement. Unfortunately, they sent a copy of the agreement, whereas I need the actual original copies signed, so it should be forthcoming tomorrow. Again, if this is approved, and then it would be signed off.
Okay, thank you for that. Further, Councillor Hamilton.
Clerk Turner, just wanted to check in about providing a dark skies brochure for this development.
Good, thank you.
I should have mentioned that because I kind of figured that might be asked. Yes, I have provided Mr. Beckenhauer with that pamphlet and encouraged him to incorporate dark sky lighting in the proposed building. So again, it's encouraging as per the resolution. It's not prescriptive at this time, but he seemed to be open to that, to speak to his electrician or contractor about doing so.
Wonderful. Good, thank you. Further. Councillor Hamilton, thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Hergert.
Thank you very much, Mark, for attending to asking all of our planners and lawyers and so on. I appreciate that. I don't want this moment to escape me. Have we given the dark sky information then to the JT development, or what, that will come forward in this site plan coming soon?
Clerk Turner.
Yes, so the resolution passed by the Committee of the Whole Planning recommended approval of the official plan amendment, which was passed by council shortly, a few minutes ago. Also, and then if the official plan was adopted by council, it then has to go to the Grey County for approval. If that's approved, then part of that resolution from the Committee of the Whole Planning this afternoon stated that recommendation for council to also approve the zoning bylaw amendment. And then ultimately the severances that are involved, 3 severances, and then lastly to pass a site plan agreement, and that certainly will be provided to them. So we'll get some direction in terms of how they maybe look to meet that.
Thank you for the question. Councillor Hutchinson, was that a hand up or is, no? Okay, I just don't want to miss anybody. So then I am going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed if any? Thank you. That does carry. So we're on the final bylaw, which is this one. Moved by Councillor Hergert, seconded by Councillor Townsend. Be it resolved that bylaw number 72-2019, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the September 17, 2019 council meeting, be now read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and engrossed in the bylaw book. Questions? Calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed if any? Carried. Thank you very much, Clerk Turner. All right, that completes our bylaws section. We are now on item 14, new business. Nothing? All right, thank you very much.
sorry.
Oh, please go ahead. Yep.
So as council is aware, there was some direction to hold a public meeting on October 15th, the council meeting for the Keeping of Hens bylaw and the associated housekeeping or temporary zoning bylaw to facilitate amendments to the West Grey Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw to incorporate and implement the Keeping of Hens bylaw if passed by council. Unfortunately, as you were aware, I did take some vacation, which I'm still paying for, but so it wasn't until Monday that I was able to complete the required ads to be placed in the paper. So the quandary is the Spotlight next edition is October 4th, and I need 20 days prior notice for the Planning Act provision, for the amendment to the comprehensive, so that 20 days cannot be met. Unfortunately, the Post, the next edition, other than tomorrow's edition, which is too late to get in, is next Thursday, the 26th, which is 19 days prior to October 15th instead of 20. Slow burn. But so there is a possible resolution. I can place it in the Sun-Times paper to meet the 20-day provision. However, of course, that will get limited circulation. So if I was to do that, I would also certainly want to still put it in the Spotlight magazine for October 4th, which gets a very good circulation in West Grey. Of course, the caveat being that will be an expensive ad, which will be paid for twice. So I can certainly proceed with that. The only other really alternative is to defer it to the November 19th council meeting if you just wanted it in the Spotlight. I did send in a request for quotations Monday. I haven't heard back from the papers yet, but I do anticipate it will be a $300 or $400 ad each per paper. It is costly. It is a lengthy ad.
So thank you for that update and providing solutions. I'd be so inclined, if I don't know how council wishes to move ahead on this, but could we consider just moving the date of which we're going to decide? We want to get this right, but we also respect those notice policies, so that we want to give the appropriate notification time period, but we want to put it in a paper that our citizens read, and that we can hold our head up high and say that we have put this in the most appropriate paper and given the most appropriate time frame that notice needs to be given. So I'm wondering if you would consider the second option, which is to change the date by which we would have the discussion. And you know what, we're moving it along anyway. It's just that the little technical portion, which we can resolve. Anyway, comments? I can go down the line if you wish, or if it seems like we're good. Thank you, Councillor Shea, for that. Councillor Townsend?
Yeah, I think it's the most prudent
Yeah.
and cost-effective process, so.
Good, thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to comment, or is that, seem to be consensus with the latter, so changing the date? Clerk Turner, would you mind just going through that date again and the process for clarity?
So with council's direction, I would proceed with putting the ad in the October 4th Spotlight paper. Will also be placed in the on the West Grey website. It'll be sent out to the news and notice circulation list. And I think it would be appropriate to get, if there's certain bulletin boards, whether it's in the urban areas particularly, well, it doesn't only affect urban areas, but we can put them in some of perhaps the local libraries and in the urban centers and maybe some of the rec facilities, just to get the word out for the public meeting. So it looks like it'll be held at November 19th, early in the meeting, and obviously an opportunity for anyone to speak to the issue from the public.
And we could do news and notice and whatever communication vehicle we currently have before us, so that's good. All right, you don't need a motion on that, I expect, just by virtue of putting it in the minutes. Okay, thank you for that. Any other new business? Okay, then, addendums? All right. Notice of motion? Councillor Hamilton.
Whereas community safety is of paramount importance in the municipality of West Grey, and residents have voiced ongoing concerns regarding vehicle speeds in certain areas of the municipality. Whereas effective traffic calming measures utilize a variety of strategies, including engineering, education, and enforcement, and thus require the collaboration of municipal staff and police services. Whereas residents require traffic calming solutions that are responsive to the unique needs of their neighborhoods. Therefore, be it resolved that, 1, a working group be formed consisting of a member of West Grey Council, a staff member from Public Works, 4 citizens, and a member of the West Grey Police Service also be invited. 2, the working group consult with residents and other stakeholders. 3, the working group identify key streets where speeding is most prevalent. 4, the working group provide traffic calming options for the identified streets, which include recommendations for education, enforcement, road engineering, and the built environment. And lastly, 5, the working group report back by the second quarter of 2020.
Good, thank you for reading that into the record. Clerk Turner, please.
So just in terms of process, the procedure bylaw, when the notice of motion was introduced by Councillor Hamilton, it is received by myself as clerk. I will place it on the next regular council meeting, which is October 1st, under new business. And at that time, council will discuss the proposed resolution and take appropriate action.
Thank you for that explanation. Anything further? All right, item 17 then. Closed session incomplete only. There was nothing. Item 18, matters arising from closed session incomplete items only. That is an NA. Item 19, question period. Anyone in the audience has a question? Mr. Miller, please.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson and councillors. As you know, I have a dislike for consultants. And in the accounts, I see another $8,000 for consultants. I guess I know what they were doing, but there's a but here. We elected a council last fall to handle these things, and in here, every councillor said that they thought they could handle these things. Now, for some reason, it's not happening. This $8,000 plus there were several other thousands earlier in the year, and there'll be another fat bill coming, I'm sure, before too long. It's going to be pushing $20,000. Now, $20,000 put quite a chunk of sidewalk in someplace. $20,000 would have put quite a nice chunk of steps from the back of the arena down to the ball diamond. So I would like to know why you people cannot do the job.
So thank you for the question, and certainly we can do the job, but from time to time, there is a requirement that we need to go out to a third party or a consultant. And I'm suggesting that that might be when we looked at the bridge. I'm just trying to think what the 8,000 is compiled with, or is that, I'm just wondering if also, if it's not the bridge, then it would be our HR consultant. Okay, I'm getting a nod. Is there a way that you could explain that without going into the HR capacity of it, but an appreciation that we have for the usage or the utility of the consultant, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Miller is correct that there were 2 payments made to our HR consulting firm for services in July. They are on a retainer for advice and direction on cases from time to time. This is not a monthly thing, so it just happened to be a busy month.
But there was quite a bill in the early year, and there will be another bill, I expect, before long. So, and these people don't even advertise for the HR business. I don't know how they find anybody to talk to, but they do not advertise, and that I think is wrong, because that money is totally gone out of West Grey, never to be seen again. That money that they're paid. So I would like to think that maybe we could kind of just be a little careful on handing money out to them people. Try and get along without them. That's what it amounts to.
Well, I appreciate your point, and certainly we're mindful of the spending when we do address issues that we need to go out to a consultant, but I appreciate your points, and that's certainly something that we don't take lightly. Okay. Thank you. I just want to check if there's anybody else in the audience that would wish to speak. This is the question period, item 19. Well, thank you very much. That should have been part of comment period, but thank you, Mr. Miller. Anyway, I do appreciate the comments, and well, that'll conclude item 19, question period. So we're on to item 20, which is municipal act notices. Clerk Turner, is there anything on this agenda? All right, thank you. I'm looking now for an adjournment. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Townsend. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you very much. It is an early evening.